Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives get real about their career journeys. This season, thanks to our partnership with GNW Consulting, you'll hear even more stories from women leaders about how they're building visibility for themselves, their careers, and their companies. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and I'm super excited to share that today's guest is Melissa Moody. She's the co-founder of Wednesday Women, the host of a podcast called The Joy of Connecting, and one of the most thoughtful connectors I know. Today, she's here to dive into her own visibility journey and how her purpose drives her approach to growth. Melissa, I'm so glad that you're joining us today. Thank you for making some time to talk.
Absolutely. You know that you have been one of the best additions to our Wednesday Women team and all you do for the podcast. I'm very excited to get my own little spot on the show.
Yeah, I think it's really overdue. And I said the same thing to Leslie when I was talking to her the other day, that there is no reason for us to not be shining a light on the two co-founders of Wednesday Women and really highlighting the people who bring us all together, because what you do is so powerful. But I think that you're guilty of a little bit of that thing where you shine so much light on others and then you're not doing it enough for yourself.
You nailed it. It is my default state to point and enjoy and celebrate. I love pointing out the amazing things others are doing. It is not easy for me to look back at myself, either to be critical of myself or to even share the things that are going well. So thank you for giving some space to it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes all you need is someone to ask you a few questions about it, which is exactly what we're going to get into today, because I want to hear all about your story. I want to hear about where you started in your career when you first realized, like, hey, I can't just be heads down doing the work. It's actually important for me to be promoting myself and my work and kind of being more of a public figure. When was that for you?
You know, I think it came hand in hand with when I made the shift from big tech to the startup world. So I was almost 14 years at the same company at Google.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. It's quite a long time. And you can imagine Google doesn't change slowly. So there were a lot of changes across those 14 years. It really started out as fairly startup in nature and in feel. I mean, we were very scrappy. It was not startup days of Google, but it felt still quite flexible and scrappy. And, you know, by 2020, when I'd been there for a long time, it was no longer the same company. There was a lot of meetings about the meetings about the meetings. There was a lot less flexibility in how things were done. I enjoyed my job. I was running a global team, so I'd been remote since like 2012. So I was running a remote team, talking with people around the world, working on something I enjoyed. But the culture of the big company had just kind of started to grind on me. And to tie that to visibility, what I'd realized is that I had this belief that you just work hard. You put your head down, you do good work. Sure, you want to be with great people along the way. I have an incredible mentor who brought me up through a lot of the ways through Google, but it was all really just moving forward in the track. There was no idea of where do I want to be in 20 years? There was no idea of what are the other opportunities available to me. When we're left to our own devices, what do we spend our time doing? I love getting into the project and working on the business. And when 2020 came and I decided to leave Google and go to a ground level startup, all of a sudden my head had to come out of the business and see the world around. One of the other things I realized was all of my network was within Google, or the clients that I'd touched while I was at Google, right? So I had a very insular network, and I also had always just kind of trotted along in my career. Nothing was about showing up for my future self. Nothing was about investing in the future self that I wanted to be or thought I could be or wanted to position myself to be.
The way that I know you now is as such a connector, so relationally driven. Was that the case for you from day one, or did you struggle figuring out what visibility would mean for you?
No, I mean, listen, I have always been a connector of people. I probably was in first grade as well. I think I came out of the womb this way, and one of my children in particular is this way as well. So I've always been someone who connects people, who's very invested in people. But I think it's a shift to think about your connections and how you're relating to the folks around you, and then to think about how those connections could take you beyond where you are now. So There's one set of connections, which is the folks that are tied to what I'm doing, connected to the project I'm focused on right around me. And then there's this idea of connecting outwardly and finding new connections and finding serendipity. And I do really think that came hand in hand with moving to the startup world. I left Google to go to a startup. It was a ground level startup. We were building from scratch, building with my amazing co-founder and brother, who understood that getting our business out there was going to depend on the relationships we built. And so all of a sudden, this connecting beyond your immediate circle became very, very important. From a business standpoint, that was what started it for me. I think eventually I realized the benefit it had for my personal growth as well. But
Yeah.
originally it started because we needed to get our tiny little company out into the world, and we needed to be talking with people, and we needed to be listening to people, and we needed to be celebrating others so that this business could have airspace to breathe and grow.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so many startups rely on those relationships, but also the story about the company that they're building and who they are and where they're coming from, because so many times you don't have the team, you don't have the product, you just have the idea and you have you, right? So I think that makes complete sense. And I'm curious, was it equally easy for you to be writing about your experience in places like LinkedIn? Was it easy for you to step into speaking, or was that challenging?
That is a good question. I will be blatantly honest. I really don't like social media, and I don't like talking about myself, and I don't like talking about my work. I don't. I can't fake it, and I won't fake it. I don't like doing it. I firmly believe that ego is the enemy as a whole. And so this perception of putting yourself out there has a lot of connotations of ego. And I think the tipping point for me is, if my why is to put myself out there, that's egotistic. If my why is to help other people who are struggling with startups, or to help two people who didn't know each other but could help each other connect, or to grow a business that I firmly believe in and believe it can bring good to the world, if those are my why, then that's a reason to be on LinkedIn. And so whenever I talk with people about their presence on LinkedIn specifically, you could extend this to the stage or writing, I always pull them back to the why. Because if your values and what you're really trying to do is not aligned with what you're doing, posting to LinkedIn, you're going to hate it, and it's going to suck, and you're going to start trying to shop it out or use AI too much. It's going to start looking as crappy as it feels. And so go back to the why. And on the days where I don't want to post on LinkedIn, I think, you know what? Somebody else probably was really struggling with a board meeting like I did today. Let me put that out into the world, because somebody else is going to see it and it's going to help them. I'm not putting it out there because I want people to know about my bad board meeting, right? So for me, mostly the why has been helping others. In the startup world, it has also been growing my business. And that's a good why as well. Trying to help more people understand what you do, why you do, how it could help them.
I think that's a really important clarifying nuance, because when you first said that, being on LinkedIn for yourself was egotistical, I was like, oh, I don't agree. But it sounds like it's about connecting to deeper purpose, and that purpose usually leads you in the direction of helping others.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I think the biggest side benefit of showing up for me, so the third why, so the first is really helping others, just showing them that I'm going through something that they could maybe relate to is really the key.
Mm-hmm.
The second is the business growth. The extra end around benefit has been becoming more of the connector. So I'm out there talking to all these people. It's very easy for me in the middle to say, person A has something that would light up person B's world. Why would I not introduce them? And that is super fun. For me, I get such personal joy out of doing that.
I have to ask you, how do you remember everybody? There are so many people in your network. You learn so many things about them. This is something that I struggle with all the time. And I'll be honest, if I did not have a CRM, I would just be dead in the water. There'd just be no chance of me able to connect anybody if I couldn't search through my CRM and be like, I talked to somebody about this, but I cannot for the life of me remember who. How do you do it?
Well, I think you're correct in having a CRM. That's absolutely a legitimate solution. That idea of having max 150 people that we can actually remember and have connections with. We live in a world where there's so many more. So I think it's perfectly okay to use tech to supplement our ability to remember things and connect with people. I used to have a personal CRM. I kind of didn't use it enough. I do sort of rely on our business CRM to help a little bit when I say,
Mhm.
oh, not who was it, but what was the last thing we talked about?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's great. So number one, go ahead, use tech. Like tech is great for that. The recording software we use called Sybil is amazing because I can literally just ask her, I'll call it her, hey, what were the last things that Ashley and I talked about? And it'll pull them up, and then it makes those connections so much richer, right?
Mm.
It's not who the heck is Ashley. Like I'm trying really hard to remember all that, but it does make the connections richer. Number two is give yourself permission to not remember and just ask. It's so okay to say, hey, can you remind me how we first connected?
Yeah.
Or, if you're on LinkedIn, use the DMs, go back and look and go back and see. If I have a very strong opinion about this, I don't connect with people on LinkedIn that I don't actually have a connection with. I need to know what the
Yeah.
relationship is. So if someone connects with me, I will actually reply to them and say, hi, thanks so much for connecting. Can you remind me, was there something in particular we were going to talk about or something you would like to talk about with me? And then, yes, that gives me a nudge, but also then I can always scroll back and be like, who the heck was this
Oh,
person?
yeah. Yeah. Whenever
Um,
I get a new connection now, I'm always like, if I remember how we met, I'm like thanking them for meeting them that way. And I
yeah.
can't tell you how many times that's helped me when someone's messaged me or tried to set a meeting or something and been like, where do I know this
Or
person from?
I have a third tip because once upon a time I was told you always have to have three. So CRM is okay. Give yourself grace to actually just forget and ask again, right? Like when you're
Yeah.
at a dinner party and you're like, remind me of your name. Like that's okay. The third one is personal stuff. Example, I was on stage with an incredible woman, Taina Palumbo Price. I've only met her once in person, but I remember deeply that we talked about tacos and tattoos. And so I will always come back to that. Sure, she was at LinkedIn, had this amazing career. No, I will always come back to the fact I remember Taina, tacos, and tattoos. So get into personal stuff. Like, does someone share your favorite band or do they play pickleball like you do? Because I think that we remember it so much better than they're a sales manager at Doodly Doo, like, no.
Yeah. It's hard to have an emotional connection to that and to
Mhm.
feel, even when somebody has the same title as you, it's hard to feel like you belong or like you're connected in a meaningful way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
totally agree with that. I think those are really good tips. So you've been doing this, for a long time internally when you were at Google. And since 2020, it sounds like you've really shifted into more of an external effort and building not only your own network, but now Wednesday Women, this amazing community that
Mhm.
just keeps growing. What have you noticed as you've made more of an effort to build your external network? How has it changed your career?
Oh, I think it's completely transformed my career. I feel like the opportunities become so much richer because you no longer are only building connections that are driving you toward a certain path. If you open yourself up to the serendipity of meeting new people who maybe have something interesting you want to talk about, all of a sudden you meet, individuals who are building a business you never thought possible. Or you meet someone who's working on a side project that ends up being an incredible collaborative partnership. So I think really the connection leads to serendipity, and the serendipity leads to endless career possibilities. I will also say, from a public standpoint, visibility on LinkedIn, I do think it creates an aura of, that buzzword of thought leadership, but I think it creates an aura of expertise. And I think there is a double-edged sword to that, which is some people have the aura of expertise without the actual expertise.
Yeah, some people are just really good at marketing themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's what I worry about when I talk about ego. I worry that people will think it's all a front versus me actually showing up as me. So that is probably why when I show up, I take extra care to be probably overly authentic and overly myself, adding
Yeah.
in gifs and emojis because I don't want to show up as perfect. I don't want to be the startup founder who's like, look at everything I'm doing. It's fantastic. We raised millions of dollars. No, founding a startup is a shit show, and I'm going to talk about it that way.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's better expertise. I'm someone who knows the ins and outs of how startups work. So I'm the one you're going to want running a startup, not someone who says it's all perfect.
Hey, listeners. We've heard from a lot of women this season who are growing and scaling businesses. So we know it's not easy. If you've got a team that's growing fast or merging with another, that can feel really exciting. But then you're staring down two MarTech stacks that don't play nicely together. This is where GNW Consulting comes in. They help marketing teams sort through the mess, mapping out what to keep, what to streamline, and how to make it all actually work together. Think of them as your behind-the-scenes problem solvers, bringing strategy and then rolling up their sleeves for the execution. Plus, they're a supporter of Wednesday Women and our mission to amplify women execs. So if you're in the middle of a messy merger or it's on the horizon, head to gnwconsulting.com to learn more and see how they're helping marketing leaders move faster and smarter. Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think that's all perfect at any stage. And anyone who says that is lying or really trying to make it so through sheer willpower, which I wish worked but does not. I mean, I don't think there's any danger of anyone thinking that you're insincere or trying to put on some kind of perfect veneer. I think that you are a very authentic person. And what intrigues me, I think it comes back again to what you were saying earlier about, ego and showing up for yourself, but not ego and showing up for others. And I feel so differently about this, and I want to dig into it a little bit because I always think, my whole why in my business is that everybody deserves to have a voice. Mm-hmm. And there are so many, especially women's voices, who get silenced. Mm-hmm. And so, I show up and it's like this healing thing for me. It's like I get to show up and I get to have a voice and it's not a threat to my career. It grows my career. But that's also me being an example for other people and the larger mission of wanting to help other people have a voice. So it's kind of this combination thing. But I know in my conversations with a lot of women leaders, like we're so trained to serve others. And I think sometimes people almost resent seeing that as the answer. Like, what about me? Like I serve others all the time. What about me? How do I make sure that I get taken care of? I'm putting all this work into building my network and my visibility. How do I make sure that I'm not just like creating another job for myself where I'm just serving more people? Like, what's your response to that?
Again, it comes back to the why. Like, if your why is because you feel you should be creating a personal brand or you should be doing something, I think that's completely the wrong why, right? There's this idea of service because you feel you have to is wrong. Service because you want to is great. And I think it's the same with visibility. Showing up, writing a book, stepping onto a stage. If it's something you want or it's something that you have a why for, it's the best thing ever. But if it's because you feel you need to chase a title that you never wanted in the first place, or people won't respect you in the boardroom if you don't have a book, it's coming from the wrong place. So I think it's not the being visible, it's back to the why. I was thinking the other day, we had a great Wednesday Women event, and one of our members, Jen Spencer, she said, I'm writing a book, but, and she had a big but there. I'm writing it because I want to write a book. I'm not writing it for anyone to read. And I thought that was really interesting because, books are kind of hot again these days. I feel like everybody's writing a book, and there's there can be a pressure of, I should write a book to be the expert on this topic. I love that she said, I'm writing a book because I've always wanted to write a book. And I thought that was really refreshing. It's, and I actually love your why for being on LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing that, because I agree. Sometimes the why is because I want to express my voice, because I want to choose my right to exercise a voice on a public platform. I think that's actually a super powerful why.
Yeah, thank you. I, like a lot of women, experienced a lot of years of being asked to be quiet while being a leader. And it's a really cathartic place to just say what I think and share how I think things work and how connection is, just whatever. And I think it's a really powerful thing for people to remember. That's like, your success in your career and in your life isn't dictated only by somebody else's expectations of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody can say that and you can say no, and you
Yep.
can still use your voice, and that you own a place to do that, which is, I think social media has so much that's kind of dangerous and
Yep.
problematic about it, but it is a place where, we're constantly being bombarded with messages, but there's also a place for us to be ourselves that we own, to
Mhm.
express
Mhm.
ourselves however we see fit. And I do think that's a powerful thing.
It is. And it's okay to reevaluate too. I see a lot of women who started their public presence and then kind of let it just keep going and they're really burning out about it, or they don't,
Yeah.
the why has changed. I think it's important every so often to step back and reevaluate, because it's okay to be a speaker for a while and then not be a speaker. It's okay to have a big influential voice on LinkedIn and then decide that's not your vibe and just post once a week. Like that's okay.
Oh, I think that's really smart. Do you think that you've evaluated your why over time? Has it changed?
Absolutely. And I do find there's periods where, like anything, like the careers we're in, like the relationships we're in, there are those gut red flags, I think. And when I start to feel those, like when I sit down to work these days, especially with Wednesday Women, I love the work I do. But when I open LinkedIn some days and I'm like, oh, I do not want to be here. Like,
I
ding, ding,
know.
ding, listen to the flag, Melissa, listen to the flag, right? And step back and say, you know what? I really don't like posting. So I'm just going to continue posting 2 times a week. But I love engaging, so I'm going to spend half an hour every day just commenting on other people's things. And that actually feels good to me. But I think listening to those red flags of ick are so important, you know?
Can you tell me a little bit more about your why and how it's changed over time?
Yes, in regard to my visibility and stepping into a more public presence, and the fact that that happened when I moved to the startup world, my initial why was very focused on building the business. I knew that I needed to show up to get comments, to then engage with people who might be potential customers. And so it was very business driven, not in a bad transactional way. I wanted more people to know about this freaking amazing product that was out there. So it was very, very business driven. I do think I've seen so many leaders who do such amazing things and don't post at all. And I think I've digested that a bit over time. Listen, I'm solidly in my 40s. I belong to the We Do Not Care Club. If you've ever seen that amazing Instagram feed, she is
I
incredible.
haven't.
This amazing lady, and she has a notepad and a pen like this. And she's like, today on the We Do Not Care Club. And she just lists things out. She's amazing. So, I think there is an element of the last 2 to 3 years where I am able to look at some of the things I'm doing and say, you know what? I really don't care. I don't care. I don't want to do it. I don't care. Cut it off the list. I couldn't do that 10 years ago. Probably couldn't really do that 5 years ago. I feel very empowered to point at the things that I don't want. Like, I never, ever want to write a book. I might. I may change my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind, but I really have no desire to ever write a book. So it's really fun to be like, nope, that's not on the list. We do not care.
Yeah.
It's empowering. And I think that's what's changed is my ability to point out the parts of public visibility that I just decide not to opt into. I don't need to be everything to everyone all the time. I'll do the pieces that serve me.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious how you define your why now and how that connects to the things you're doing with Wednesday Women.
I define my why now as being someone who helps others. And sometimes that's in the form of connection. And sometimes that's in the form of saying things that people aren't saying. And sometimes that's in the form of just showing up and being there when someone needs me. And that is my personal life. And that is my LinkedIn persona at the same time.
I think that what you're saying really resonates if you've ever read any of Melissa's posts or connected with her, that's just the truth of how it is to be connected to you. For the folks who are maybe evaluating their why for the first time in a long time, how do you recommend that they do that? How can people reevaluate their purpose and reconnect with their purpose?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know. Yeah, just a short final question.
One of the amazing Wednesday Women members, Siobhan Thatcher, put together a values assessment. It's very simple, but she's been in an amazing career, multiple jobs that any of us would be impressed to hold. And it's really simplified. It's basically an exercise where you look through a huge list of values and you circle the ones that feel good. Really quick reaction, what feels good. Then you go back and you take away some circles if you realize it's something that your spouse's value or your mentor's value or your boss's value or potentially a cultural value. So there's like this second layer of these are things I value, but like, is it really me? Or is this something I think I'm supposed to value? Then you're kind of left with this set of values. And it's really neat because she then stacks them, she puts the options of what you could do. So in this case, it would be maybe if we're talking about visibility, it might be start writing a book or start posting on LinkedIn or start posting on X or create a TikTok channel. What are these things that you might be considering for your visibility or become a speaker? And then you literally put a 0 to 10 for each of those and match them up to your values and see which ones support and align with your values and which ones don't. And all of a sudden it becomes very clear. So you might even break it down further. You might say, spend half an hour on LinkedIn every day engaging with other people's posts. Post 1 to 2 times a week. Post 7 days a week. And you might see that some of those support your values and some of them just do not align. And it's a really simple way to match up what you think your values are with what your choices are, what you're going to step into. I would highly recommend that to anyone. And I don't know how to tell anybody what their individual values are, but I think if you just create some space and let yourself really think on it, you'll probably find what you're looking for.
Creating space is no small feat, and it's always a good reminder that it's valuable.
It is.
Yeah.
And I'm probably the worst culprit for not slowing down and creating space. So if I can do it, you can do it, listeners.
It's hard to do when you get excited about things.
I have a natural excitement.
And that shows all over the Wednesday Women community. So I want to thank you for making some time in your super crazy schedule to chat with us and tell us a little bit about your journey. I'm excited to chat with you and Leslie together about Wednesday Women and what that's looked like over the last couple of years, because I know it's just been an absolutely wild ride. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you for everything you do for the Wednesday Women team, Ashley. It's so fun to chat today.
Now that we're at the end of today's episode, take a moment to reflect on how Melissa's story might inspire your own. How can your values inform your approach to building your public presence? And how can building a public presence support the next chapter of your career? If today's show inspired you to think of an extraordinary woman leader in your life, let her know about the Wednesday Women Executive Membership. It's a safe space for women leaders to tackle any challenge, ask questions, and uplift others. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. Thank you to our Season 2 sponsor, GNW Consulting, to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood, and to our technical producer, Yelena Georgievich, with Kind Media Productions. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping the small ripple creates a big wave in your life. Until next time.